Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the geography introductory session. I hope everyone's doing well and managing to avoid the rainy weather. My name is Helen Fayers. I am the head of department for geography here at Reigate College, and I've got some students with me today. I'm just going to go round and they're going to introduce themselves to you and tell you what subjects they are studying at college and what they are planning on going on to do when they finish. So Evie, I'm going to come to you first.
Hi, my name's Evie. I study geography, maths and economics, and I'm looking to study geography at Newcastle University.
Hi, I'm Candice. I do French, Spanish, geography and English lit, and I'm hoping to do geography at Oxford.
Hi, I'm Oscar. I currently study geography, English literature, psychology and musical theatre, and I want to go on to do performing arts.
Hi, I'm Hannah and I study biology, geography and maths, and I want to do environmental science at Southampton.
Thanks, guys, for doing that. I'm just going to start sharing my screen with you all. So the plan for our session today is to give you a brief overview of the course at Reigate College, so you know a little bit about what we do in geography. The guys here, the students here, are going to tell you what topics they enjoyed, a little bit about their coursework and the field trips. And then I'm going to talk through the Superpowers topic, and we're going to have a little debate, a little bit of information about China and the United States, and hopefully look to see which of these two countries is set to become the world's leading superpower. There will be a poll for you guys to vote on at the end, based on what you know and based on the information that we talk about today. So let me just go through what we study in geography at Reigate College. We study the Edexcel exam board. There is a 50-50 split between human and physical geography, and there's 3 exams. There's also a piece of coursework. Now, the coursework is worth 20% of the overall A-level, so it's significant. So if you are, not a massive fan of exams, there is a little bit of coursework in there to help, which lots of people see as really, really beneficial. The field trips that we go on are all set to prepare you for the coursework, and this means that they are compulsory, but there are optional ones as well to very exciting places. In the past, we've been to the Azores, we've been to Iceland, we've been to Sicily, so some pretty exciting places to go and see geography in real life. The topics that we look at in geography, 4 physical topics. They are tectonics, coasts, the carbon cycle and energy security, the water cycle and water security. The human topics that we look at, there's globalization, regenerating places, superpowers, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about today, and a topic called health, human rights and intervention. Now, we would imagine at school, some of those topics sound quite familiar. You probably have looked at tectonics and or coasts before, and globalization is probably another one that seems quite similar. So you might be wondering what's different at A-level. Well, the hope is that you build on a general understanding of tectonics, coasts, globalization, and we add more depth of detail in the A-level. We'll also start to look at some more of the kind of complex physical nature of tectonics and coasts, for example. But the other thing that's really nice about the A-level is there are some brand new topics probably to you. Things like the health, human rights and intervention topic looks at a lot of political geography. Superpowers has aspects of history in there, looking at things like the British Empire. So there is some familiarity with the topics, but there's also some new things to capture your interest in geography as well. Why might you want to come to college and study geography? Well, it's a really good skill for developing, it's a really good subject for developing a range of different skills. It's got some maths in there, there's some quantitative skills that we try to hone, but we're not expecting you to be mathematicians. There's essay writing, so we are trying to develop your language and literacy skills. There's some practical skills in there with regards to the field work that we do. There's also a lot of skills for discussion and debate, which is good for, you know, the jobs that you might want to go on to do. So there's lots of different skills, and I think that's one of the reasons why geography is such a valuable subject, because it gives you a breadth of skills to develop. It's also really helpful for understanding the problems that we face in the world today, notably things like climate change, large-scale overpopulation in some countries, and potentially what some of the solutions for those problems might be. Geography's got big crossover with a range of other subjects, physical sciences, and also a range of other humanities subjects, but it sits well with almost any subject that you're looking at in college. It's a pretty sociable subject. We want people to come to the classes and have discussions and talk through things. So it's, you know, it's nice to hear people's opinions, even if they might be different from one another. And it's a well-regarded subject by universities and employers. So all in all, a very valuable subject to come to study. If you would like to come to study geography at Reigate College, we do have a set of minimum entry requirements. There are different requirements if you have done GCSE geography before. If you haven't done GCSE geography, please don't worry, you can still come to do it at A level, but the entry requirements are a little bit higher. So if you haven't done GCSE geography, you need to have a grade 5 in both English and maths. If you have done GCSE geography, we want you to have got a 5 in your geography GCSE, and then to have either a 5 or a 4 in English and maths. We don't mind which is the 5 and which is the 4, because you've got that 5 in geography already. The reason we have these minimum entry requirements isn't to stop people coming and studying geography. It's to make sure that if you do study geography, you're going to be in the best position to succeed. We want everyone to do their very best, and that's why we have these minimum entry requirements. As you can tell from what the guys have said today, our students go on to do a range of different things. The destination data from last year shows a big variation of what students want to go on to do. I've got the university destinations on the screen. So just over a quarter of our students go on to do something closely related to geography. So geography, geology, planning, environmental science, something like that. But you can see there's a whole range of different university degrees, lots of business, lots of economics, biology, engineering, and you can see the big list on the screen there as well. In terms of jobs that geography is useful for, there's a whole range of different examples of jobs that you've got on the screen from a range of different sectors. This is one of the most common questions that I get: what kind of job could I do if I did a geography A-level? And the answer really is anything that you want, apart from probably some, you know, very, very specific things, dentistry, medicine. You're going to need your sciences in particular for those, and maths. But geography offers a massive variety of different job opportunities. I'm not going to go through all of the ones that you can that I've got on the screen because you can see them, but a massive range from very physical things that you might want to look at, like hydrologist, hazard prediction and management, if you're really interested in the physical geography. If you really like data and you're a keen kind of data analyst in geography, things like census data. The census is coming out this year, so maybe something that people are interested in and want to get involved in. GIS, Geographical Information Systems, is quite a new and upcoming emerging area within geography. Or if you're more of a human geographer, things like charity work, civil servant, working in education, all of those sorts of things, geography is really, really useful for as well. So that's my little introduction to the course. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen with you for a minute now. And I'm just going to get some information from the students about the things that they've liked and the things that they've been doing over the last couple of years here. So, Evie, I'm going to come to you first. Can you tell me which human topic you have enjoyed the most and why?
I've enjoyed health, human rights and intervention the most, probably because it's focused on the more social and economic factors of geography, and it's to do with the world as a whole.
Thank you very much. Oscar, can you tell me what physical topic you've enjoyed the most and why?
I've enjoyed the carbon cycle probably the most, because it's grounded in sort of the basic knowledge that we probably most of us know about sort of global warming and sort of that sort of side of the carbon cycle, but takes it to sort of a wider and more complex sort of aspect of it. So it's really interesting to sort of learn more about what you think you already know a lot about, and just learn sort of that extra depth to it.
Thanks very much. Hannah, can you tell me a little bit about your coursework, what you did it on, some of the methods that you used, please?
So my coursework was on carbon, and I compared the carbon stored in one woodland to the carbon stored in a plantation. And some of the methods I used was to calculate the total carbon stored in a tree. And so I was measuring the tree circumference, analysing what tree species it was, and working out the height of a tree, all to work out the carbon content of a tree.
Thank you, Hannah. Lastly, Candice, would you tell us a little bit about the field trips and how they were useful for the geography course, please?
I found the field trips really useful for finding out more about methods that we could use in our coursework, especially on the physical side of things with like beach profiling and finding out exactly how you do that, and just generally getting a bit more experience other than a textbook and really seeing geography in the world.
Thanks, guys. That's really helpful for everybody to hear. So we are going to explore a little bit more today the superpowers topic, and we're going to go through a little activity that will be very similar to something that we might do in the classroom. We've got two students looking at arguments to support the United States being the next or continuing to be the biggest superpower in the world. And we've got two students who are going to present some evidence for China actually overtaking the United States as the leading superpower. I find the superpowers topic one of the most interesting topics that we look at in geography, because it's all about power, and power is really important in understanding the world that we live in, because the most powerful countries in the world tend to be the ones that are able to make the biggest decisions, whether that is kind of global economics, what's going on, whether it's which countries to invade, what technology to invest in. They have a really big influence over the rest of the world. The superpowers topic does incorporate a little bit of history. So we go back and look at how the British Empire became powerful and how they maintained that power, and then how that power declined over time. We look at the Cold War period, so the United States and the USSR, and how they had very different ideologies, and how at that time we lived in quite an unstable world and there were competing kind of ideas for power. And then we look at predominantly how the United States has become powerful and the ways in which they try to maintain that power, and hopefully the guys in the room will be able to give you a bit more information about that. And then in geography, we always look to the future, and we're interested in these new emerging countries. So we look at China in particular, but also India, Brazil, Russia, countries that are becoming more and more powerful, and how they are going about gaining that power. So we're just going to present a few little ideas. The students here have been doing some research, and they're just going to kind of share the arguments that they've got with you guys. So Evie, can you kick things off, please, with your first argument for why China might be overtaking the United States as the next big global superpower, please?
China has seen much larger economic growth over the last decade, in some years nearly reaching 10% growth. This is practically unheard of in the Western world. China is now the world's second richest country, behind the USA, with many predicting that it will overtake the USA as the world's leading economy in this decade, and by 2050 will be the world's largest economy by a significant margin. China's economy has been much less affected by global recessions than the USA, giving investors and businesses around the world a greater confidence to invest there. China is still regarded as the factory of the world, making it and distributing most of the world's products due to low-wage workers and the large number of workers they have. China's economic strength means that it increasingly is one of the most powerful voices in terms of trade and economic growth around the world. China's economic power helps to fuel all of the other characteristics of a superpower, such as enabling them to have the world's largest military force.
Although China's economy has grown quickly, it is slowing down. And furthermore, when we divide the wealth of the country by its population, China is only the 59th richest nation compared to the USA as the 5th richest. The Communist government of China has kept a tight control on spending and consumption in the country, which has actually led to increased slowing of economic growth. This is not a problem for the capitalist policies of the USA. The biggest advantage that the USA has over China, however, is not the economic advantage, but a cultural one. The ideologies of the USA are still spread around the world and in an unparalleled way. The USA's cultural dominance can be seen through brand value, and the biggest global brands such as Apple, Microsoft, Google, and Coca-Cola all originate from the USA. And these TNCs turn over trillions of dollars themselves. China cannot replicate this cultural dominance at all, making it very unlikely for them to be able to overtake the USA as the world's leading power.
But China has got the largest army and really flexes its military muscles, which really stresses out its neighbours. The military power it uses, the military power is arguably the most important element of a superpower, because history shows that that's how most big powers have become so influential over time, like the British Empire. Some can argue that this isn't the most important in today's world, but the USA still uses military strength when it needs to get its own way. China's established a small military presence on the Spratly Islands and has dredged the seabed to create artificial reefs, enabling them to build an airstrip. In these disputed islands, China's installed two launch batteries for surface-to-air missiles, and the Chinese Navy is working on a long-range hypersonic anti-ship missiles and so-called carrier-killer medium-range missiles. This shows China's capabilities and desire to extend its reach beyond its own land territory. China can also use more subtle ways to extend its power, with large investments in Africa, and appears to have no concerns about supporting countries which are seen in the West as legitimizing brutal dictatorships.
Despite China flexing its muscles at times, it is the USA which is seen as the world's police, and the massive power and strength that comes with that. China may have the world's largest army, but it is the USA that has the best funded military in the world by a long way, spending nearly 3 times the amount China does. The USA spends over $600 billion a year on its military, and it widely believed to have some of the most advanced weaponry in the world. In modern warfare, it isn't about the number of soldiers, but it is as much about the intelligence and preventing conflict in the first place. This often requires the most sophisticated technology. The USA has been willing to exercise its hard power even without the support of its allies, such as during the Iraq War.
Thank you for that information, guys, and thank you for doing the research on that to come up with those points. Now, for all of you listening, we have got a little poll for you to vote on based on what you know, what you've heard from the students. So you should be on your screen. You can vote for this question. Will China overtake America as the world's leading superpower? So if you can vote now, that would be fab. Okay, this is really interesting. So we have a slight winner, 54% of you saying that China will overtake America as the world's leading power, but the results are pretty close. And I think that probably replicates what we are seeing in the world more and more, that China's economic growth is looking more and more favourable to it overtaking the US as the world's big superpower. Who knows where we're going to be after all the coronavirus stuff works itself out with regards to economic growth and how badly this is going to hit some countries' economies. So I think the next thing for us to do is just to say thank you for listening to our little information session about the superpowers topic. We think this is really important in terms of your understanding, your knowledge of the world around you. If you did want to explore this further, I've got a nice book recommendation for you, and it is The New Silk Roads by Peter Frankopan. It's excellent, it's easy to read, it's really up to date, and it goes through a huge amount of information about how China is growing its economy, how it is developing its reach around the world. So if you're interested, The New Silk Roads by Peter Frankopan is a really, really good read. So to finish off from me, before I take some questions from you guys, I just want to say how important I think studying geography is, and I'm sure you can imagine I'm going to say that as a geography teacher, but I think to be good, global citizens, to understand the world in which we live, geography is an invaluable subject to study. I think what's particularly important about this subject is that it links together so well. So if you are a predominantly human geographer and you think, well, what does the carbon cycle or the water cycle matter to me? I'm not interested in that, I'm interested in people. Without understanding these physical processes, we can't understand what goes on in different countries around the world. We can't understand why some places are able to excel and to become rich and powerful and why others aren't. So it really does kind of cross the border of a huge number of different topics. It helps us to understand the past so that we can learn the lessons and hopefully not make the same mistakes in the future. And it also gives us ideas for how we might cope with some of the big future problems around the world. It's also really important for jobs. We look at where the world is going to be in the next 10, 20 years time, which for you guys is going to be when you're out in the workplace. Things are going to look very different. And I think geography gives you a really good understanding of where our world, both in terms of its the physical side of it, but also in terms of what's happening with the economy and what's happening with people around the world. So I think in terms of job security, geography is a really good subject to study. So it's going to be over to you guys now to ask some questions, which I will do my best to just been passed some questions. So the first question, which subjects go well with geography? In my experience, the subjects that are most often paired with geography are either some of the sciences or another humanities subject. So you saw from the what the students were saying, we get quite a few students doing geography with another science. Often biology is very, very popular, but also it's very popular for another humanities subject. So English, history, economics, there are big crossovers and big links with those subjects. So biology is really useful for the physical geography, but the humanities side, economics, obviously really, really important for all of the economy stuff that we look at. History, valuable for the superpowers topic. But what I would say is you don't have to do those subjects. We get every single student from across the board, whether it's performing arts, whether it's sports, whether it's product design, all those sorts of subjects. So I would say if you're interested in parts of geography, don't worry if it doesn't fit into one of your other subjects really neatly. If you're interested in geography, then study it because you'll work hard and you'll do well in it. But on the whole, things like economics, biology, English, they tend to be our most popular combined subjects. I've got another question here about average class sizes. In the department at the moment, the average class size is 19. This tends to never go above 20, and sort of the bottom end is about 16, but at the moment we're 19 in a class. I've got a question here about homework. So I don't know why I'm laughing. Homework. The college policy is that you get 4 hours of homework a week. I would say on the whole, I set less than that, sort of looking to see reactions from my students. But there is an expectation that even if you're not being set specific work to do, that you are consolidating, you are reading around the subject. I do give lots of extension readings and things like that. Would any student here be willing to make a comment on homework? Oscar, I'll go for it.
I'd say it's pretty manageable. It's nothing overwhelming really. You sort of it's always linked to what you've done in the lesson, and it sort of always seems to be just sort of an extension of that, really helping sort of consolidate what you did in your lessons in the week and any sort of extra sort of wider reading and stuff around it. But it's never really that overwhelming, I'd say. Yeah.
Thanks, Oscar. Okay, so I've got a question here for you guys about what was your favourite topic and why. So you've touched a little bit, but maybe you could expand on that a bit more. Evie, come to you first.
As I said before, probably health, human rights and intervention, because I definitely like human geography a lot more. And because I do economics, it links to it with like the political side of geography.
I would probably say superpowers or globalization, because they're just very relevant, especially like globalization. It really sort of links to sort of the current life and how sort of we've got to our sort of state of connectivity, like interconnectivity around the world. I thought it was really interesting. Just very like applicable to everyday life.
Yeah, I also really enjoyed urbanization. I mean, I think all of the topics are all really relevant. But yeah, I'm definitely more of a human geographer, and I really enjoyed urbanization. It's something that you can really see, especially on the field trips.
And my favourite topic was carbon. I really like physical geography, and I want to do environmental science, and all the global warming really is going to really help me in the future. So having carbon.
Thanks for that, guys. So I've got another question here. What are some of the case studies for the Tectonics section? So we look at some classic case studies that you might be familiar with already. So things like the Boxing Day tsunami, the earthquake in Haiti. We look at the Icelandic eruption of the volcano I can't pronounce, so I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying. So we look at some classics, but we also try to keep up with what is going on right now, like what might have happened last week with regards to an earthquake or a volcanic eruption. So there's some classic case studies, but we try to be as relevant and as up to date as we can. And I can't predict the future for when you're here, so I can't tell you what those might be, but keeping an eye on what goes on in the news is really, really important for geography. We want to see that you are interested in the world around you, not just that you can read the textbook. So I encourage students to get like the BBC News app on their phone so that you can just keep on top of what's going on in the world, and that's useful for every topic, not just tectonics. I've got a great question here. Do you need to be good at maths for geography? No. I'm certainly not very good at maths, but there are some maths-based questions in the exams, but we teach you all of those. We're not expecting you to come in with a high level of maths ability. That's why you can come and do this course with a 4 in maths. But some questions are maths based. They don't equate for very many marks overall for all of the exams, so it's not the end of the world if it's your kind of weak point. To give you an idea of things that we do, basic averages, mean, median, mode, working out things like the interquartile range. I would say the most tricky bit of maths that we do are the statistical tests that we look at. But they are new for everybody, and we talk through them step by step, so they are not too daunting. Hannah, you do maths, don't you? Would you mind just saying a few comments about the maths?
Yep, so I do maths, and I find the statistical tests fine, and I have friends that aren't so good, and they might find it harder, but they still understand it because the teachers really take you through, and they're always there if you need help with the statistical tests.
Thanks. Okay, another question. What percentage is each exam towards the overall grade? Okay, so 3 exams. You've got a physical paper and a human paper. Both of those account, so 30% for the human paper, 30% for the physical paper. And then you have something called a synoptic paper. The point of the synoptic paper is to see how all of these different topics in geography link together. So it's about seeing, I suppose, the real world. So you're given a big case study to look at, and then you've got to apply your knowledge from all of the different topics that we've looked at to some specific questions. And that is worth 20%. So physical paper 30, human paper 30, synoptic paper 20%, and then that leaves 20% for the coursework at the end. Another question, are the field trips individual or class projects? So you go on the field trips with your class, but they are to prepare you for your individual piece of coursework. So everybody here has done a different piece of coursework. You have to come up with your own title. You have to come up with your own methods for collecting your data. You have to write it all up individually. The guys in the room have handed theirs in a couple of months ago, maybe a month ago. I'm losing track of the time now. You are helped along the way. There's lots and lots of support with the coursework, but it is individual, and those field trips are to prepare you, to give you some of the skills that you're going to need for those. Did anyone want to say anything about the coursework? Go on, Oscar.
I think the coursework's probably like not as overwhelming as it sort of seems. Initially, when you first get given sort of the coursework, the examples, and get told what it's going to be, it seems like quite sort of a daunting task, but you tackle it bit by bit, and it is not that overwhelming. And it becomes quite interesting because you start learning about your local area, because most people do it on an area that's local to them. So yeah, it's not as overwhelming as it initially seems, and you get guided through it. And although it is an independent task, you get so much help at college and in classes that you don't feel like you're on your own doing it. So yeah.
Thanks, Oscar. Okay, next question. How many hours of lessons per week? You have 4 hours of lessons a week. Nice and simple answer to that one. What do the field trips involve? So the field trips will be, it's predominantly carrying out different techniques to collect fieldwork data. For example, things like environmental quality assessments. So you've got a sheet of information to make some judgments about what the environment in a particular area is like, and you can score that on a scale and a variety of categories. So green spaces, the quality of the buildings, rubbish, things like that. So we try to incorporate as many different techniques as possible, so that when you come to the coursework at the end, you've got a whole range of different techniques that you could choose from to find out some information about either an urban area or about a physical concept. Do you have to buy textbooks? No, you don't have to buy your textbook. The college provides you with a textbook, and we use a second textbook in the classroom, but you don't have to buy them at all. Some students want to buy a revision guide, but there's so many resources that we put on our VLE, our virtual learning environment, called Moodle, that I don't encourage people to buy things, because I think there is enough provided for you that you don't need to buy anything extra. So please don't worry about buying a textbook. Another question, do you get to choose what you do your coursework on? To a large extent you do, but your coursework has to be related to the specification. So it has to be related to something that we've taught you. But yes, the particular area that you want to look at is entirely up to you. We will guide you as best as we can for projects that we think work well, but it is individual, and it's entirely up to you what you want to investigate, as long as it meets the criteria of being in the specification. In the past, I've had quite out there projects looking at tectonic hazards in California, because someone went there for the whole summer holiday and they wanted to do it on that. We've had a few this year on the COVID pandemic, and then we get some, classic ones looking at people's local area, local rivers, local woodlands, for example, as well. But the choice is yours. What you're most interested in geography is a good way to go with that. Got another question. Do we study any individual countries from around the world? I would say the biggest case study that we look at in geography is China. And that's because we can incorporate it into most of the different topics. So classic earthquake in Sichuan in China killed huge numbers of people. So we can tie it into the tectonics topic there. But in terms of all of the human topics that we look at, globalization, superpowers, health, human rights and intervention, a little bit less with regenerating places, but China is probably our big overarching case study that we look at. What I would say is that geography is really moving away from these big style case studies. And although we do look at China a lot, to be the most successful in geography now, it's not really these big case studies, it's having a range of different smaller examples. So what I wouldn't ever ask anybody to do is, you know, create pages and pages of notes on one particular country around the world, because we are not interested so much now as to whether you can learn and repeat information about a particular case study, but can you develop an argument? Can you look at the strengths and weaknesses of a range of different things? So it's good to have lots of different small examples that you can use to support your points rather than just one particular case study. But yes, geography is global. It's about lots of different places around the world, and we look at a huge range of different countries. Saudi Arabia, looking at human rights issues, to the Reigate High Street, our local area. So you get to see the whole range of different places and countries around the world. Thank you. Just being past the questions. The highest mark question in the exam. So the biggest mark allocation is on paper 3, the synoptic paper, and it is worth 24 marks. But there's really no difference between that 24 marker and the 20 mark questions that you get in paper 1 and paper 2. And this is an evaluate style essay. So at GCSE, you'll be looking to evaluate things, and it's exactly the same format. We're interested in the strengths and the weaknesses of certain things, and then trying to come to a conclusion about what might be, I don't know, the best for a certain group of people. But 24 marks is the highest mark question. Okay, another question. Do people who take geography usually take 3 or 4 A-levels? So the vast majority of people at college take 3 subjects, and there is a big mix and match between A-levels and BTECs. Some students, as you've heard from a couple of these guys, take 4 subjects, but that is becoming less and less common now that the A-levels have gone to a linear A-level, so we don't have ASs anymore. So most people take 3 subjects. I'm not going to say that's necessarily 3 A-levels, because I would say the majority of students are on a mix and match program. So they are doing maybe 1 or 2 A-levels and then a BTEC, or 1 or 2 BTECs to make up their 3 courses. So we are a heavily mix and match subject. Is the content heavy? Is it content heavy? Yes, there is a lot of content to go through, but to put that into some kind of a context, I mean, we have finished teaching the content now, so it's not like we are in a rush up until May, because we've got so much content to get through. But there are 8 different topics to cover. So 4 human topics, 4 physical topics. So there is a lot of content to go through, but most students come in having done GCSE geography. And so a fair amount of the content is familiar. I'm not going to say already known, but it is familiar. And so it's building on a lot of things that you already know. Even the carbon and the water topic are building on GCSE science. You know, you guys, I'm sure, have looked at the carbon cycle in year 9, or at least this is what I'm led to believe. You look at the carbon cycle in year 9, you look at the water cycle in science. So it feels like a lot of content, but large amounts of it are familiar to you. Another question, is the coursework just a fieldwork report? Not quite, and that's because there is some literature review element of the coursework. And what I mean by that is you have to do some kind of background research on your particular topic. So say, for example, you're interested in finding out whether your local place is sustainable. You need to do some background research. What do geographers say sustainability is? What would be a good example of a sustainable place? So you have to do a mixture of field work and then writing up that field work, and background literature research, like you might do if you were writing an essay, for example. So it's a mixture of the field work and writing that up and finding out what we know about your particular topic of interests. Okay, we've got questions about top tips to prepare for the A-level geography. I'm going to pass over to you guys. Everybody, a top tip just to prepare for geography. Yeah. So Oscar, can I come to you first?
Sort of what you already said, but sort of just keeping up to date with what's going on generally in the world. Like possibly just downloading like the BBC app, where I find BBC Sounds is quite good because it has like a podcast or just the radio on it. So yeah, just keeping up to date with the news, because more often than not, just general events come up a lot in what we study, and even if it's not the specific event, similar events and stuff that you might learn from just hearing about some case study could apply to a lot of different things we learn about. So yeah, just keeping up to date with the news basically.
I would say try and consolidate as you go through each topic, because if you wait until the end, there's like a lot of content to revise at once. But if you go through and like understand as you go, it'll be much easier at the end.
Don't worry if you don't, it's okay. I mean, if you're going to go for it, reading books always helps. Anything by like Tim Marshall or Danny Dorling. They're good people to read about for geography.
Top tip from me, anything David Attenborough. Watch it, watch it, watch it. My guys are probably sick and tired of the David Attenborough documentaries, but it sounds really obvious, but it's obvious for a reason, because it's all about the world in which we live. It's a good crossover between the human and the physical geography. So you know, we love a bit of David Attenborough documentary in the geography lesson. So those are some pretty good top tips. I've got one last question from you guys, and that is, do we get 2 teachers? No, you don't. We don't split the teaching via physical and human geography, which is what I would imagine a lot of you have at school, because all of the geography teachers here are just teaching A-level. We really can focus wholeheartedly on just this one A-level course. So we've not got year 7s and 8s and 9s and so on to worry about. So you get one teacher, which is nice to build a rapport with, you know, one person, and they get to know you really, really well, what your strengths and what your weaknesses are, so that they can help you, and they will teach you all of the topics. So that's it for this evening or this afternoon, folks. So thank you so much for joining us and for getting involved with our poll and for asking lots of important questions. I hope you're enjoying being back at school now, and we really look forward to you starting here at Reigate College in September. So thank you very much for joining, and enjoy the rest of your evening.